They told you that love means sacrifice, that being good means being silent, that your worth is measured by how much of yourself you're willing to give away. But what if that's the lie that's been breaking you all along? What if every time you stayed quiet to keep the peace, every time you said yes when everything inside screamed no, you weren't being kind, you were disappearing? We live in a culture that praises exhaustion and calls it compassion. You are told that tolerance is strength, even when it destroys your peace. That loyalty means never walking away, even when it costs your sanity. And so you give, and give, and give, until you forget what it feels like to be whole, the truth. The world doesn't reward authenticity. It rewards compliance. It celebrates the version of you that keeps smiling through pain. The one who absorbs every disappointment quietly, who calls self-abandonment maturity. But the Stoics saw it differently. They believed the greatest betrayal is not when others lie to you. It's when you lie to yourself. When you silence your own truth to maintain someone else's comfort. Epictetus once said, "If you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid. Because when you finally start choosing yourself, people won't understand. They'll call you selfish, distant, arrogant. But what they're really saying is this: your obedience once made them comfortable, and your honesty now makes them uneasy. Still, you must choose you. Because every time you trade authenticity for approval, you lose a piece of your soul. And a person who keeps abandoning themselves eventually forgets who they are. So, if you've ever wondered why peace never lasts, why love often feels like losing yourself, this message is for you. Because loving yourself isn't defiance, it's survival. And in this video, we'll explore how Stoic wisdom can guide you back to that truth. 5 timeless lessons that show why the most radical act of love is learning to stop apologizing for your own wholeness. Stay until the end, because what you'll discover there may change the way you love and live forever. Modern society has made self-love confusing. On one hand, we are told to believe in ourselves. On the other, we are trained to seek constant validation from others. We measure our worth in followers, reactions, and approval, and yet we feel emptier than ever. But the Stoics understood something we've forgotten. Self-love isn't about admiration. It's about alignment. It's not the mirror, it's the foundation. To love yourself is to stand with truth, even when it isolates you. To respect yourself is to hold your ground, even when others disapprove. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this, and you will find strength. In other words, the love that matters most isn't the one that flatters your image. It's the one that disciplines your mind. And that's the kind of love this episode is about. Not the performative version sold in slogans and captions, but the quiet, demanding form of love that rebuilds integrity. That asks you to stop begging for validation and start living by your values again. Because when you understand yourself deeply, you stop chasing people who can't meet you there. You stop searching for a peace in the chaos of approval. You stop performing goodness to earn belonging. Self-love, in the Stoic sense, is self-respect in motion. It's the courage to set boundaries that protect your peace, to walk away from noise that drains your spirit, and to face solitude not as punishment, but as purification. Today, we'll go through 5 Stoic pillars that show how to transform your inner world. Pillar 1, the betrayal of the self, understanding how we lose ourselves in the name of love. Pillar 2, dependency versus devotion, breaking free from emotional need disguised as loyalty. Pillar 3, letting go of being needed, learning to exist without, proving your worth. Pillar 4, rejection, solitude, and rebirth, turning loss into wisdom. Pillar 5, becoming the source, building peace that no one can take away. Each lesson will bring you closer to one truth. That peace isn't found in the crowd, but in the quiet company of your own soul. And once you learn to love yourself with that kind of steadiness, you'll realize that self-respect isn't rebellion, it's freedom. There's a form of betrayal that leaves no visible scar, no confrontation, no final words, no dramatic ending. It happens slowly, through small denials, polite smiles, and silent agreements. It's the kind of betrayal that society rewards. It's the betrayal of yourself. Most people don't notice it happening. It begins with good intentions. You want to keep the peace. You want to be kind. You want to be the one others can depend on. But little by little, that desire to be good becomes a habit of erasing your own needs. You start to nod when you disagree. You apologize for existing too loudly. You take responsibility for other people's moods. And every time you do, a small voice inside you gets quieter, until silence becomes your second nature. The Stoics would call this the erosion of integrity. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one." But what happens when your version of being good means abandoning yourself? When kindness becomes submission and understanding becomes self-erasure? That's when the rot begins, not on the surface, but in the soul. You begin to shrink in ways no one else sees. You become smaller in rooms that used to feel safe. You walk in, but pieces of you stay behind, left scattered in every place you chose to please instead of to live. And yet, people praise you for it. They say, "You're so easygoing, so patient, so understanding." They celebrate your silence, your compliance, your ability to endure. But beneath the praise, something sacred is dying. Your authenticity. Epictetus warned, "He who does not value himself will not think it worthwhile to do anything good for himself." That is the tragedy of self-betrayal. It tricks you into believing that peace is found in making everyone else comfortable. But peace built on denial isn't peace, it's performance. And performance is exhausting. The Stoics saw virtue not as suffering, but as sovereignty. The ability to live in alignment with your values no matter the circumstance. So ask yourself, when was the last time you said no without guilt? When was the last time you spoke a truth that scared you? When was the last time you honored your limits? Not because someone gave you permission, but because you decided you mattered. Because that is where healing begins. It's not in learning to be louder, but in learning to be honest. Even when honesty costs you approval. We learn self-betrayal early. Long before we understand boundaries or self-worth, we're taught obedience. We hear it in our parents' voices, our teachers' commands, our culture's praise for the good ones. Be polite, be agreeable, be selfless, and over time, those words form a quiet belief that love must be earned through disappearance. So we start performing. We perform happiness when we're hurting. We perform strength when we're exhausted. We perform forgiveness when what we really need is distance. And each act of pretending costs us something real. The Stoics warned that confusion of values is the root of suffering. Seneca wrote, "He who suffers before it is necessary suffers more than is necessary." And how often do we suffer simply because we refuse to disappoint others? We suffer by saying yes when every part of us wants to say no. We suffer by calling exhaustion responsibility. We suffer because we've mistaken tolerance for love. You can live decades like this, with a smile that hides resentment, with achievements that feel hollow, with relationships that demand your silence. Until one day, you look in the mirror and realize that you've built a life where you exist only as a reflection of what others needed you to be. The Stoics believed that the first step toward wisdom is to see things clearly, to remove illusion, to face reality, even when it burns. Because clarity always comes before peace. Clarity reveals the roles we've accepted out of fear. The helper, the peacemaker, the one who never asks for help. And once you see those roles for what they are, chains disguised as virtues, you can finally begin to release them. but releasing them feels like rebellion. It feels wrong, because when you start choosing honesty over harmony, the people who benefited from your silence will call you difficult. They'll say you've changed, and they're right. You have. You're changing from being convenient to being real. Epictetus said, "First say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do." That's where the shift begins. When you stop defining goodness by how well you serve others, and start defining it by how truthfully you live. To live truthfully doesn't mean becoming harsh or selfish. It means refusing to betray your inner voice for temporary comfort. It means realizing that kindness without integrity isn't kindness, it's fear, and that fear keeps you trapped in cycles of giving, explaining, and apologizing, until you forget that the purpose of love isn't to disappear. It's to be seen, fully, honestly, unapologetically. Healing from self-betrayal isn't a single decision. It's a slow return. One boundary, one truth, one honest moment at a time. It's uncomfortable because it feels unfamiliar. After years of measuring your worth by how others feel about you, finally choosing yourself feels like a crime. You'll feel guilt, not because you're wrong, but because you've been conditioned to equate obedience with goodness. The first time you say no, your heart will race. The first time you stay silent instead of over-explaining, you'll feel cold, almost cruel. But that's not cruelty, that's recalibration. That's your soul remembering what it's like to belong to itself again. Marcus Aurelius said, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." That principle sounds simple, but in practice, it requires immense courage. Because living by what's right and true will often mean disappointing those who preferred your compliance. It means walking away from roles that once defined you. It means risking misunderstanding for the sake of peace that's real. And yet, every time you choose integrity over approval, your strength grows quietly beneath the surface. It's not loud, it's not dramatic, it's steady, like a muscle that finally begins to work after years of atrophy. At first, you'll miss the noise, the constant validation, the small rush of being needed. But in its absence, something more sacred begins to emerge. Clarity. Clarity about what matters. Clarity about who you're without the masks. Clarity about the kind of love that aligns with your soul. Not the kind that demands you to be less, but the kind that allows you to be whole. The Stoics didn't teach avoidance. They taught ownership. They believed freedom wasn't in escaping discomfort, but in mastering your response to it. And that includes the discomfort of saying, "This no longer serves my peace." When you finally honor that truth, you stop chasing harmony that costs your sanity. You stop apologizing for existing in your fullness. You stop calling boundaries selfish. And that's when something powerful happens. The world begins to adjust around your honesty. People who only valued your silence drift away. Those who respect your integrity draw closer. And life, once filled with endless noise, starts to feel aligned, grounded, and real. Seneca said, "A man who suffers before it is necessary suffers more than is necessary." When you stop betraying yourself, you suffer less, not because life gets easier, but because you no longer create your own pain through denial. You begin to live as the Stoics intended, in harmony with nature, your true nature. And that's the essence of loving yourself first. It's not arrogance, it's remembrance. It's the act of coming home to the person you abandoned to survive. When you finally meet yourself again, not as a project to fix, but as a being to honor, you will understand what the Stoics meant by freedom. It's not found in the absence of struggle. It's found in the presence of self-respect. Most people don't fall in love. They fall into dependency. It looks like love. It sounds like love. But it's something far more fragile. Dependency is not connection. It's an agreement rooted in fear. It says, I will abandon myself if you promise not to leave. At first, it feels beautiful. You merge your lives, your routines, your dreams. You give everything, and you call it devotion. But underneath the devotion lies anxiety, the constant fear that if you stop giving, you'll stop being loved. The Stoics would call that the illusion of control. Epictetus taught, "Seek not that events should happen as you wish, but wish them to happen as they do." In other words, do not cling to what is not yours to command, and nothing outside your reasoned choice is ever truly yours, not even someone's affection. Dependency thrives on that misunderstanding. It convinces you that love can be maintained by constant effort, that if you fix, sacrifice, or prove yourself enough, you can guarantee belonging. But love built on effort alone will always collapse under its own weight. Because love that must be earned cannot be trusted. True devotion, on the other hand, is rooted in presence. It doesn't grasp or beg. It stands firm. It allows others to come and go without losing its center. It's grounded in the understanding that your peace cannot depend on another person's approval. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Let not your happiness depend on something you cannot control." He wasn't dismissing love. He was protecting the soul. Because when your peace is tied to another's behavior, your emotions become their possession. They raise you with affection and destroy you with indifference. You lose yourself in the tides of someone else's moods. That isn't love. It's servitude dressed in romance. It's emotional survival disguised as loyalty. And it always ends the same way, with one person empty, and the other unaware of the cost. The tragedy of dependency is that it begins as devotion, a sincere desire to care, to give, to belong, but without inner sovereignty. That care becomes consumption. You don't love them anymore. You need them to love you, because without them, you don't know who you are. The Stoics called that slavery of the soul, not because someone owns you, but because you've forgotten that you were never meant to be owned. To love from freedom means to say, "I choose you, but I remain myself." Anything less is not love. It's fear pretending to be love. There's a story we're told from the moment we're old enough to dream, that somewhere out there, another person will complete us. Movies, songs, culture, they all whisper the same message. You're half waiting to be made whole. And so we search, not for partnership, but for salvation. But the Stoics warned against building your peace on anything unstable. Epictetus said, "When something external delights you, remember to what it is due. Then use it, but do not lean on it. The moment you lean too hard on another person, you make them your crutch, and in doing so, you forget how to stand." Dependency often hides behind noble words. You call it loyalty, you call it commitment, but underneath, it's fear. Fear of being alone, fear of facing the silence within. You tell yourself that without them, life would be meaningless. But what you've really done is give away the keys to your inner world. And when you hand someone that kind of power, you also hand them control of your emotions. Your mood begins to follow theirs. Their silence becomes your anxiety. Their distance becomes your self-doubt. You start to mistake their approval for oxygen. This is not love. It's dependence. And it's one of the most common forms of self-abandonment. You trade your freedom for proximity. You shrink your truth so the connection doesn't break. And in doing so, you become a shadow orbiting around someone else's light. Seneca warned, "He who is everywhere is nowhere." If you lose yourself in trying to be everything for someone else, you end up being nothing for yourself. That's the quiet tragedy of emotional dependency. It feels like purpose, but it's actually paralysis. Real devotion doesn't dissolve your individuality. It enhances it. It says, "I bring my wholeness to meet yours." It's not about losing yourself in another person, but about creating a space where both can remain sovereign and still connected. Marcus Aurelius believed that love rooted in virtue, not emotion, was unshakable. Because virtue, unlike emotion, cannot be taken from you. So ask yourself, do I love this person because of who they are, or because of how they make me forget my loneliness? Would I still choose them if I no longer needed them? That question is uncomfortable, but it's sacred, because it reveals whether your connection is born from freedom or from fear. Dependency says, I can't live without you. Devotion says, I choose to live with you, but I remain whole, and only one of those will survive the storms of life, because only one of them is rooted in strength, not scarcity. Real love doesn't demand that you disappear. It doesn't ask you to trade your boundaries for belonging. It doesn't require you to prove your worth through suffering. Love that costs your peace is not love. It's dependency dressed as devotion. Dependency begins as warmth and ends as weight. It starts with comfort, the thrill of being needed, but soon turns into quiet exhaustion, because you're no longer loving freely. You're performing to stay chosen. The Stoics saw this clearly. They taught that peace cannot depend on another person's behavior, because everything external, affection, attention, approval, is beyond your control. You can appreciate it, but never own it. You can share your heart, but never surrender yourself. Epictetus said, no man is free who is not master of himself. To love well, you must first master the fear that makes you cling. That fear whispers, if they leave, I'll fall apart. But a Stoic heart answers, if they leave, I'll grieve, and then I'll stand. Because love that's rooted in freedom can survive loss. It doesn't collapse when circumstances change. It doesn't fade when distance appears. It knows that connection is a choice, not a chain. So how do you love without losing yourself? You begin by returning responsibility to where it belongs. Your emotions, your responsibility, your reactions, your choice, your peace, your duty. When you stop expecting someone else to complete you, you finally begin to meet them from fullness. You give because you want to, not because you're afraid not to. You stay because it aligns with your soul, not because you're terrified of being alone. That is the difference between devotion and dependence. Seneca wrote, as long as you live, keep learning how to live. Learning how to love is part of that. Because loving maturely, stoically, means seeing others as companions, not cures. You stop treating relationships as medicine for loneliness and start seeing them as mirrors for growth. And in that space, something shifts. You stop chasing those who make you feel small. You stop fighting for validation in one-sided connections. You start valuing peace over passion, clarity over chaos. Love becomes lighter, not because it lacks depth, but because it's no longer built on fear. Marcus Aurelius once reflected, what stands in the way becomes the way. Every heartbreak, every disappointment, every silence you endured is a teacher guiding you back to yourself. Dependency taught you who you were when you needed others. Devotion will teach you who you are when you no longer do. When you love from that place, you no longer beg to be chosen. You no longer confuse need with love, or sacrifice with purpose. You love because it is your nature, not because it's your survival. And that's the most beautiful paradox of Stoic devotion. The less you cling, the deeper you connect. Because freedom, not fear, is the soil where real love grows. For most of your life, you've probably been told that your worth lies in what you provide. That to be loved, you must be useful. That being needed is the same as being valued. And so you give your time, your energy, your peace, until there's nothing left to give. At first, it feels noble. You become the one people call when they're lost. The one who fixes things, who holds everything together. You tell yourself this is purpose, this is strength. But slowly, almost imperceptibly, it turns into a cage, because being needed feels powerful until it becomes your identity. There isn't purpose anymore. It's pressure. You stop asking what you want and start asking who still needs you. You can't rest because rest feels like irrelevance. You can't say no because saying no feels like rejection. You live on alert, managing everyone else's crises while quietly ignoring your own. The Stoics would call this a distortion of virtue. Seneca warned, "No man is more unhappy than he who never faces adversity, for he is not permitted to prove himself, and when your worth depends on being useful, you rob yourself of adversity, the kind that forces you to stand alone. To prove yourself to yourself, you become addicted to other people's dependence. You need their need, because their chaos gives you meaning, and their approval gives you oxygen. But deep down, you know, it's not love, it's transaction. You fix to feel worthy, you sacrifice to feel seen, and yet, the more you give, the less seen you become. The Stoics understood this pattern well. They saw how the human mind clings to roles for security: parent, partner, friend, savior, and how easily we mistake those roles for identity. Marcus Aurelius said, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." When you think like a caretaker long enough, you forget that you're also a person, not just a provider. It's easy to tell yourself that helping others is love. But when that help drains your peace and replaces compassion with resentment, it's no longer virtue, it's avoidance. You're avoiding the emptiness that appears when no one needs you. You're avoiding the question, who am I without their chaos? That question terrifies people because it strips away illusion. It asks you to imagine a life where you exist not for others' approval, but for your own alignment. And if that feels frightening, it's because you've confused attention with affection and usefulness with love. But the Stoics would remind you, you were born to be whole, not to be needed. Because being needed is temporary, but being true to yourself is eternal. There's a particular kind of fatigue that doesn't come from work. It comes from holding too much for too long. You've carried people's secrets, their disappointments, their chaos, and somewhere along the way, you forgot what it felt like to stand unburdened. You became the anchor everyone depended on, the listener, the mediator, the problem solver, and you convinced yourself this was love. That strength meant absorbing everything without complaint. But the Stoics would see it differently. They would call it a quiet form of slavery, not imposed by others, but by your own misunderstanding of virtue. Epictetus wrote, "Don't explain your philosophy, embody it. If your philosophy is rooted in peace, in truth, in balance, then your life must reflect that, not just when it's easy, but especially when it's hard." Living in accordance with nature doesn't mean being endlessly available. It means recognizing your limits as part of nature's design. Yet we resist that truth. We tell ourselves that setting limits is selfish, that stepping back means failure, that if we rest, someone will fall apart and will be to blame. So we keep giving, we keep fixing, we keep saying yes, until one day, the helping turns hollow. You start to feel invisible. You start to notice that the more you give, the less anyone seems to notice the cost. They thank you, they rely on you, but they don't really see you, because your usefulness has replaced your humanity. Seneca warned of this danger when he said, "He who gives to everyone ends up giving nothing to himself." And the Stoics knew, a life lived entirely for others is not virtuous. It's diluted. You cannot pour endlessly without becoming empty. The world will praise your sacrifice. It will call you generous, loyal, selfless. But what they really mean is convenient. Because your entrance makes their lives easier. And as long as you keep playing that role, no one will question the imbalance. Not even you. That's the cruel irony of being the strong one. The stronger you appear, the less people think you need support. You become everyone's stability and no one's concern. But the Stoic definition of strength is not how much you can carry. It's how honestly you can live. Strength isn't the ability to say yes to everything. It's the wisdom to know when a yes becomes a betrayal. Ask yourself, when was the last time someone asked how you were, and you told them the truth? When was the last time you put down a burden that wasn't yours to hold? When was the last time you let yourself be seen, not as dependable, but as human? Because until you do, your strength will remain a performance, a mask that hides the quiet exhaustion underneath. The most painful realization in life is that being needed is not the same as being loved. It's a truth few want to face, because being needed feels safe. It gives you identity, purpose, direction. But that kind of safety is deceptive. It ties your value to someone else's weakness, and your worth to their chaos dot at some point. Every person who lives to be indispensable will meet a moment of silence, a day when no one calls, when no one asks, when there's nothing left to fix. And for many, that silence feels unbearable, because without a crisis to manage or a role to fill, they no longer know who they are. But that silence is not punishment, it's liberation. It's the beginning of learning to exist without condition. It's the space where you remember that your existence is enough, even when it isn't being consumed by others. The Stoics believed that freedom begins with ownership, not of others, but of the self. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Do not waste what remains of your life in imagining what others think of you." He meant that peace is impossible when your identity depends on perception. As long as you live to be useful, your value will rise and fall with people's needs. But when you live by principle, your worth becomes unshakable, because it comes from within. Epictetus taught that a man enslaved to approval is not free, and a man who needs to be needed will always serve his captors willingly. The only escape is awareness, to see the transaction for what it is, to realize that love measured by utility was never love at all. So you start small. You stop answering every call that demands your peace. You stop fixing problems that people create again and again. You let others carry the weight of their own choices. At first, it feels cold, but soon, it begins to feel honest. Because you're no longer performing compassion, you're practicing wisdom. Seneca said, "Associate with those who make you better," and that includes yourself. When you choose rest, when you allow quiet, when you no longer chase chaos to feel important, you're not abandoning people, you're honoring balance. And here's what happens when you finally let go of being needed. The right people stay, even when you stop serving their convenience. They see your worth beyond what you provide. They meet you where you are, not for what you do. Because true love doesn't depend on your utility. It depends on your presence. When you live this way, your relationships become cleaner. You stop attracting takers and start aligning with equals. You stop explaining your boundaries and start embodying them. You begin to understand what the Stoics meant by living in accordance with nature. Because nature doesn't prove its worth. It simply is. The sun never apologizes for setting, and you don't need to apologize for resting. Let others think you've changed. Let them call you distant, unhelpful, withdrawn. They're right. You've withdrawn from a system that thrived on your self-erasure. You're no longer living to be needed. You're living to be whole, and that is the essence of Stoic freedom. To serve when it's aligned, to rest when it's right, and to know, deep in your bones, that your existence needs no justification. Rejection hurts, not because of what it takes away, but because of what it makes us believe about ourselves. It shakes the illusion that we're enough only when we're chosen. It exposes how deeply we've tied our worth to being wanted. When someone walks away, our mind doesn't say, "They made a choice." It says, "I wasn't enough." That's the distortion. The belief that being left means being less. The Stoics saw through this illusion centuries ago. Epictetus said, "It is not things themselves that disturb us, but our opinions about them. It's not the rejection that wounds us. It's the story we tell ourselves afterward. We think their absence is proof of our inadequacy, but in truth, it's often protection, a divine redirection disguised as loss. Every rejection reveals alignment. It exposes what wasn't meant to continue. No matter how deeply we desired it, it burns away the illusions we were too comfortable to release on our own. And like fire, it destroys, but also purifies. You can see this in every stage of grief. The silence after the goodbye. The nights replaying what you could have said. The aching question, what could I have done differently? But eventually, if you stay long enough with that silence, something begins to shift. You realize that the pain isn't a punishment. It's an invitation. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "What stands in the way becomes the way. Rejection is not a wall. It's a mirror. It shows you where you are still trying to unlove instead of embodying it. It forces you to meet yourself without the filters of approval or attention. And that meeting, though painful, is sacred, because rejection clears space for rebirth. It teaches you that the world doesn't end when someone stops choosing you. It continues, quietly, faithfully, waiting for you to return to yourself." The Stoics believed that pain is the first proof of growth, that every loss strips away something unnecessary. And if you can sit still long enough after the storm, you'll notice the calm that follows isn't emptiness. It's truth finally revealed. So when life removes someone, or something, that wants to find you, resist the urge to chase it. Resist the reflex to question your worth. Instead, ask, what part of me was I refusing to see until this moment forced me to? Because rejection, when faced with courage, becomes revelation, the doorway back to your own power. There's a silence that most people spend their lives trying to avoid. It arrives when the crowd leaves, when no one is watching, when the applause fades and you're left alone with your thoughts. That silence terrifies people because it's honest. It strips away distraction, leaving you face to face with yourself. We mistake solitude for loneliness, but they're not the same. Loneliness is emptiness that craves escape. Solitude is fullness that requires presence. It's the act of sitting still long enough to hear your own soul again. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Nowhere can man find a quieter or more untroubled retreat than in his own soul." He didn't mean that as poetry, he meant it as practice. The Stoics understood that stillness isn't withdrawal, it's recalibration. It's returning to the one place you can truly control, your inner world. When you first enter solitude, your mind rebels. Every regret you've buried starts to surface. Every doubt echoes louder than it did in company. The noise you've been running from finally has room to speak. And it's tempting to run again, to fill the silence with another distraction, another scroll, another conversation, another illusion of connection. But the Stoic doesn't run. He observes. He watches his thoughts like clouds passing through the sky, present, but not permanent. He allows discomfort to refine him instead of define him. Carl Jung said, "Who looks outside, dreams. Who looks inside, awakes." That awakening doesn't feel peaceful at first. It feels raw, uncomfortable, almost unbearable, because it reveals all the noise you've mistaken for identity. It exposes the habits, the attachments, the endless striving for validation. And once you see it clearly, you can never unsee it. But that's where real power begins, in awareness. Because solitude, when faced with courage, doesn't isolate you from the world. It anchors you within it. You become less reactive, less desperate, less swayed by every opinion or emotion around you. You stop giving your peace away for temporary comfort. You start choosing stillness over stimulation, clarity over chaos. The Stoics taught that peace is not found in the absence of noise, but in the mastery of attention. When you learn to center yourself in solitude, the world loses its power to unbalance you. You begin to see people, problems, and pain for what they are, transient. And that clarity is liberation. So when solitude calls, don't resist it. It's not punishment, it's purification. It's your soul's way of clearing the fog, of reminding you that strength was never about how many people stand beside you, but how deeply you can stand with yourself. Because once you faced the silence and made peace with it, you realize something extraordinary. You were never alone. You were simply waiting to meet yourself. There comes a quiet turning point, not loud, not dramatic, a moment when you no longer need anyone to choose you to feel chosen. You no longer beg for closure or chase explanations. You simply breathe and realize the peace you were searching for was never in their presence. It was always in your permission. This is what the Stoics meant by rebirth. Not a second life, but a steadier one. A life where your worth isn't determined by who stays or who leaves, but by how honestly you remain with yourself. At first, this rebirth feels strange. You will notice how quiet it is. No one celebrates you for healing. No one applauds you for choosing solitude. Growth rarely looks heroic from the outside. But inside, something monumental shifts. You start to see rejection not as loss, but as refinement. The pain that once crushed you becomes the proof of your strength. The silence that once frightened you becomes your sanctuary. You begin to understand what Marcus Aurelius meant when he wrote, "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts." When those thoughts are grounded in self-respect, no external storm can shake your foundation. In this stage, the world around you doesn't change. You do. You stop over-explaining, over-giving, over-trying. You stop walking into rooms that demand your silence. You start walking towards spaces that honor your truth. And for the first time, you no longer feel like you're fighting for peace. You simply live from it. The Stoics believed that rebirth is the natural result of acceptance. Epictetus said, "Seek not for things to happen as you wish, but wish for things to happen as they do, and you will go on well." Acceptance doesn't mean apathy. It means trusting that every loss has a purpose, that every ending clears space for something truer. Because when you stop resisting what left, you make room for what was meant to find you. And what finds you after you've rebuilt yourself is never chaos, it's calm. Not because life suddenly becomes easier, but because you become someone who no longer breaks in its presence. This is what Stoic rebirth feels like. Not fire and thunder, but stillness and strength. You don't rise louder, you rise clearer. You don't need revenge, you need understanding. You don't seek closure, you give it to yourself. And when that happens, you begin to live differently. You stop trying to prove that you're lovable. You stop needing to be understood by everyone. You start choosing peace even when it means walking alone. Because the person who walks alone after self-betrayal is not lonely. They're free. In that freedom, love returns. But it looks different now. It's not desperate. It's not performative. It's steady, honest, reciprocal. You meet people not from lack, but from abundance. You no longer crave to be completed, because you've remembered that you already were. Rejection built your resilience. Solitude rebuilt your soul. And from that quiet union, rebirth begins, not as a new person, but as the real one you were meant to be all along. There's a moment in every person's journey when something inside quietly shifts. You stop chasing people. You stop begging for explanations. You stop trying to prove that you deserve what should have been given freely. And for the first time, you feel something unfamiliar, calm. Not the numb kind of calm that hides exhaustion, but the grounded calm that comes from knowing you no longer need to perform. You spent years giving, bending, adjusting, waiting, hoping someone would see your worth and reflect it back to you. But the truth the Stoics understood is simple. No one can give you what you have not yet given yourself. Epictetus said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." Freedom begins the moment you stop outsourcing your validation. Because the more you chase what's outside your control, the more enslaved you become to it. You start measuring your peace by someone else's reaction, your happiness by someone else's attention. And slowly, without meaning to, you hand over the keys to your inner kingdom. The Stoics called that the great confusion of life, mistaking external approval for internal alignment. You think you want love, but what you really want is relief from the fear of being unseen. You think you want success, but what you really crave is permission to rest. And the moment you stop chasing, you discover something revolutionary. The peace you were seeking was never running from you. You were running from a dot, because peace doesn't hide in people or places. It hides in presence. It exists in the still moments when you stop negotiating your worth. When you stop asking, "Am I enough?" and start declaring, "I already am." Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts." When those thoughts become steady, when they no longer spiral around what others think of you, you begin to realize that strength has nothing to do with resistance and everything to do with return. Return to center, return to reason, return to yourself. Becoming the source doesn't mean isolation. It means independence. It means being able to stand in your own stillness and say, "Everything I was waiting for was within me all along." And that's the beginning of true power. The kind that doesn't shout, doesn't seek, doesn't chase. It simply is. The modern world has taught us to measure our lives by visibility. If no one sees it, we question if it even matters. We post, we perform, we present, not always for vanity, but for reassurance that what we do, who we are, still exists in someone else's eyes. But wholeness does not need witnesses. The Stoics lived by that truth. They built strength in silence, integrity in solitude, and peace in the absence of applause. They knew that a life built on performance will collapse the moment the audience turns away. Seneca wrote, "He who lives for no witness lives truly." That's the essence of Stoic self-reliance, to build a character so steady that external validation becomes irrelevant. Because when your peace depends on attention, you are always one misunderstanding away from misery. There's a profound shift that happens when you stop seeking recognition. You begin to live with clarity instead of noise. You stop chasing acknowledgement and start focusing on alignment. You realize that not every good thing needs to be seen to be real. In fact, most sacred growth happens unseen, in quiet mornings, in solitary walks, in private forgiveness. When you become your own witness, the world loses its power to define you. You no longer measure progress by applause, but by peace. You no longer shape your worth by how others receive you, but by how truthfully you live. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one." He meant, stop explaining your value. Embody it. Stop rehearsing your identity for others. Live it in private. The greatest strength isn't in being admired. It's in being consistent when no one is watching. That's what becoming the source truly means. Not independence from others, but independence from illusion. You don't stop loving people. You stop needing their validation to feel complete. You don't isolate yourself. You simply become your own anchor, steady in both praise and silence, and something miraculous happens when you reach that point. You start to attract people who meet you in peace, not chaos. Because when you stop performing, you leave space for authenticity to arrive. People feel the steadiness in you, not the loud confidence of ego, but the quiet magnetism of someone who no longer seeks to prove anything. That's the energy of self-possession. The Stoics called it apatheia, not indifference, but equilibrium. It's the still center of a person who lives aligned with reason and virtue. No panic, no pretending, no need to control outcomes, just presence, pure, grounded, alive. So if your peace has ever felt conditional, if it rises and falls with the opinions of others, remember this: you are not here to be understood by everyone. You are here to understand yourself. And once you do, you'll realize that wholeness was never waiting for witnesses. It was waiting for awareness. There's a kind of strength that doesn't announce itself. It doesn't shout. It doesn't demand. It doesn't need to be proven. It's the strength that comes from knowing, deeply, quietly, that you are enough. You don't chase. You don't convince. You simply exist in alignment with what is true. This is the power the Stoics cultivated. Not the kind that dominates, but the kind that endures. Not the kind that seeks control, but the kind that remains composed when control is impossible. They called it virtue, strength guided by wisdom, courage, temperance, and justice. To live by these principles is to live from the inside out, to become the source of peace, instead of a seeker of a dot. Epictetus once said, "Make the best use of what is in your power, and take the rest as it happens." That's not resignation, it's mastery. It's understanding that freedom doesn't mean escaping difficulty. It means refusing to let difficulty dictate who you are. When you become the source, you stop being tossed by every wave of emotion or opinion. You stop waiting for apologies to move on, or recognition to feel seen. You stop waiting for the world to change before you do. You begin to walk differently, with calm, grounded authority. Your presence starts to speak louder than your words ever could. People will notice. They may not understand it, but they'll feel it. That quiet steadiness that doesn't seek validation, yet commands respect. It's not arrogance. It's the peace of someone who has stopped negotiating their worth. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts." When your thoughts are rooted in self-respect, your life naturally aligns with serenity. You don't have to force balance. You embody it. You don't have to control outcomes. You trust them. You don't chase love. You radiate it. And from that space, everything changes. You attract not what you crave, but what reflects your clarity. You build connections grounded in peace, not performance. You create work that expresses truth, not desperation. You begin to see that what you once called losses were simply redirections. Every ending leading you closer to your own center. Seneca said, "To be everywhere is to be nowhere." When you are the source, you no longer scatter your energy trying to please everyone. You focus it, calmly, intentionally, on what aligns with your values. Your no becomes sacred. Your yes becomes purposeful. And your life begins to feel like it belongs to you again. That's the final evolution of self-love. Not indulgence, not defiance, but clarity. You stop searching for power and start embodying it. You stop performing peace and start becoming it. You realize that your worth never needed to be earned. It only needed to be remembered. The world will keep spinning with its noise and its demands. But you, grounded, centered, whole, will stand quietly in the middle of it all. Not untouched by life, but unmoved by illusion. You've become what you are always meant to be. Your own source of peace, your own foundation, your own truth. And from that stillness, you no longer chase meaning, you live it. You've walked through 5 pillars, 5 transformations that mirror the Stoic path from self-betrayal to sovereignty. Each one peeled away a layer of illusion. Each one brought you closer to what's real, yourself. Pillar 1 taught you to stop betraying who you are. to see that silence isn't always kindness, and that peace built on denial is only performance. It reminded you that the first act of love is honesty, and that integrity begins when you stop apologizing for your truth. Pillar 2 showed you the difference between devotion and dependency. That real love doesn't require erasing yourself to stay close to someone else. You learned that connection without freedom is captivity, and that the highest form of devotion begins where fear ends. Pillar 3 asked you to release the need to be needed, to understand that being indispensable is not the same as being loved. You discovered that you can serve without surrendering your peace, that you can care deeply without carrying everything. Because your worth was never meant to be measured in usefulness, it was meant to be lived in wholeness. Pillar 4 took you into the silence, through rejection, solitude, and rebirth. It reminded you that solitude is not punishment, but purification. That rejection doesn't reduce you, it refines you. And that what feels like the end is often the beginning of becoming real again. Pillar 5 revealed the final truth. That peace isn't something you find, it's something you remember. You learned that you are not here to chase love, approval, or validation. You are here to embody the calm strength that the Stoics called virtue, to become the source, the place where peace begins, where truth lives, where your life finally belongs to you. Marcus Aurelius said, "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts, and when your thoughts are grounded in clarity. When you stop living through others' expectations and begin living through your own values, life becomes simpler, not easier, but lighter. The noise of the world fades. The need to be understood dissolves, and you start to feel what the Stoics promised all along, a quiet confidence that no one can take from you. So as you step forward, remember this: you are not what others failed to see. You are not the roles you've outgrown. You are not the wounds that shaped you. You are the awareness beneath it all. The stillness that remains after the storm. The fire that keeps burning long after everything has fallen away. That is your true strength. That is your freedom. That is what it means to love yourself, fully, calmly, and without apology. If this message resonated with you, it's because somewhere deep down, you've always known that the person you've been chasing, the peace, the approval, the love, was never out there. It was always within you. The Stoics never promised a life without pain. They promised clarity, the ability to stand still when the world spins. And every principle you've heard here leads back to that same truth. You are already whole. The work is not to become someone else, but to return to what's always been waiting beneath the noise, yourself. So take a moment right now. Close your eyes, take one deep breath, and remind yourself, nothing external can define my peace. Because the moment you live by that truth, the world begins to change its shape around you. Not because it's different, but because you finally see it through steadier eyes. If this journey stirred something in you, a memory, a truth, a quiet realization, share it in the comments below. Your story might be the reflection someone else needs to begin their own return. And if you found value here, subscribe to Stoicraft, where we turn timeless Stoic wisdom into modern clarity. Every week, we explore how ancient philosophy can heal modern pain, how to live with strength without hardness, how to feel deeply without losing balance, and how to build a mind that remains unshaken. No matter what the world demands, remember, the goal isn't perfection, it's presence. You don't need to fix yourself to deserve peace. You just need to stop abandoning yourself to chase it. Walk forward quietly, live deliberately, and let the calm within you become the calm around you. Because you are, and always have been, the source.